All right, we want to make this video today because I want everyone to understand how this services profitability thing works. All the time I hear manufacturers saying that install services are profitable. That's a good way, a good model to run your business. I sell product, then I sell install. I want to show you what is actually happening in companies today that they don't really recognize. All the time, as I'm talking to clients, they're constantly saying, we make most of our profit with services. Well, what is profit? And what profit are they actually talking about? I want to show you, and I wanted to show my kids today, this model that I have, because it explains what a P&L looks like, the profit and loss, the income statement. So revenue is top line revenue. When I go out and I bill an hour and I charge a certain amount, I might charge anywhere from say $100 to $250 an hour. And so that's top line revenue. Well, then cost of goods sold comes in, that gets subtracted to compute gross profit. The problem is there is no cost of goods sold when we do services. And so when I do the subtraction, I end up with revenue. So do we report revenue? That is what we report. Now, some consultants have said, let's move our operational cost, our OPEX or our SG&A portion of our income statement that has to do with services up to the top and get a true gross profit. This is a mistake. It's a mistake because all of this exists for these people. If there's no people billing, we don't need any of this. We don't need plant and equipment. We don't need computers. We don't need training. We don't need travel. We don't need anything. We don't even need a company. And so the idea of moving this up here is wrong. What we actually want to do is leave revenue here, bring it down as revenue for services, and then compute our SG&A down here to a net profit. Now, is services profitable? That was one of the questions we asked. Well, when we look at gross profit, it is profitable. You go out and you bill $100 an hour or $150 an hour, and you have an operational burden cost for that person. And you subtract that out, and you end up with some true rate that you're actually making in terms of profit. Well, here's what's happening. People are going out, and they're billing their time. Now, does anybody know how many hours there are in a year? Probably not, right? Oh. Well, here it is. It's 2,080. There are 2,080 billable hours in 1 year, okay? Now, what happens is, let's say you have 10 people, and those 10 people go out and bill 2,080 hours. Well, what does that turn into? If we multiply that by a bill rate, let's pick $150 an hour for all 10 of these people, for 2,080 hours, we're going to come out with somewhere around $3 million in revenue, $3 million in gross profit of services. All right. Now this looks good, right? $3 million. However, nobody bills $3 million with 10 people because it's 100% utilized people. We can't do that. It's impossible. We have to subtract out of that all kinds of stuff like vacation and training and other things that take away from this inventory you have in terms of services. So when we start subtracting all that stuff out, what we find just in vacation alone, let's say you have 3 weeks of vacation, that's going to take about $180,000 out of your $3 million profit. And so the profitability of those services starts to shrink. It turns out that if you can bill somewhere between 70 and 75% of your time, that's good utilization, that's profitable. Now, what really happens though is that people start going out on projects and they move around from project to project and they spend time in their car and they go on vacation and they have sick time and they have training time. They spend time in the office doing R&D work, research and development, reading periodicals, magazines, email, and all of a sudden that utilization time shrinks down to somewhere around 50%. Well, guess what? The cost of an individual is somewhere around $70 to $80 an hour. $70 to $80 an hour. If we take that away from their bill rate of $150 or $100 an hour, $150, $200 an hour, it starts to eat away at the profitability of this $3 million number. And pretty soon, we find that if we don't make 70% of our time utilized, we're going to lose money. Well, here's a little exercise to go through. Take your total inventory, multiply it by the number of hours in the year, 2,080, multiply it by your average bill rate. If it's 125 and you're in the SMB market, then use that number and see what your total capacity is. It's going to be somewhere around $3 million. If you're billing less than 150, it'll be a little lower, 2-point-something million. And then go take a look at your top line revenue for services only over the last 12 months and see how much profitability you actually have. Now, if the true cost, burden cost of an individual is somewhere around half of your bill rate, which it usually is, and here's a quick metric, there's a lot of math you can do, but if you take 1% of a person's annual income, let's say they make $100,000 a year, then assume that their burden cost is around $100 an hour. Okay? It's a rough estimate. I haven't done any math here, so it's actually a little inaccurate, but it's close. And if you go through all the math in your OPEX, you'll see that it's pretty close by simply taking all of the plant and equipment required to operate this group and dividing by the number of people you have. You'll find that this 1% number is close. And I was just on the phone with a woman just 2 days ago, and she said, we are absolutely profitable. Our people are very billable. So I said, okay, how many people do you have? She told me how many people they have. We multiplied it by 2080. We multiplied it by her average bill rate, which was somewhere around $100 an hour. Then I asked her how much she billed last year, and it was only about half of that. And so her people were busy all the time, but they only billed half of their total capacity. That means that they only broke even. And that's what's happening to companies all over the country right now. They're breaking even on services because they don't have an accurate way to track how many hours actually got invoiced at that $150 an hour. And if it didn't get invoiced, it's not revenue, it doesn't roll down the net profit, and so they can be as busy as they want to be. The company's not profitable on services. And so that profitability number at the end of the year is lower than you think it is, and you're wondering why. Where did all that money go? This is where it went. It went into people sitting around doing research and development, going on vacation, and transitioning between projects, and your services aren't billable. So how do you fix this? You start tracking this stuff. You start tracking every single hour, and you measure it against your total capacity, the 2080 number of hours. And if you can hit 70 to 75% against 2080 per person on average, you'll win. Now, one more mistake that you constantly run into, or that I constantly run into, is this. People start measuring 70 to 75% per week. What happens if I invoice 75% of my time every week? Will I hit 75% at the end of the year? No. Well, it seems like I might. However, here's what happens. Vacation, sick time, education, those things start to creep in mid-year. I'm tracking at 75%, and all of a sudden this pushes me down to 60%, 50%, 40%, and all of a sudden my company is unprofitable. And this is why resellers are getting killed right now in profitability, net profit. Thanks very much. This is Dave Stelzl. Make sure your company's profitable.